Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Jar of Marble dwellers and Jar of Marble curious. My name is Linda and this is Jar of Marbles. It's splendid that you're here today. I always enjoy when you do. It's just quite wonderful, really. This week, I wanted to talk a little bit about let them step back. So what I'm meaning by that is your kids make their own decisions. I have had this conversation with others who have adult kids who perhaps are making decisions that you know will blow up in their faces, that will hurt them perhaps emotionally, financially, or both. And it boils down to stepping back. As an example, if my husband is getting worked up about what a family member is doing, we have to remind each other to step back and let go. We grow our kids to be ready as is possible for the world, and we have to step back. We have to let them. Just let them. It's none of our business. Now, if you're wincing and feeling uncomfortable about this, yep, it's not easy. And I've been there, I know, I still go there sometimes. But if you're wanting your own life, you have to get out of theirs. If you want to be in their lives with invitation, you have to get out of their affairs and choices. Why would we give ourselves heart failure, high blood pressure and worries? We can just let go. After much turmoil, I am an advocate for letting go. I've done, all the sleepless nights, the nagging dark feelings through the day as to what's bothering me, and then the remembering about worrying about one of my kids. And at that moment, I knew I had to step back. Let me stress, it took a few talkings to myself to actually do it. You talk to yourself? Oh, well, I do, Bob. You've got to talk to the expert. Oh. As I realised I was making my life a bit of a misery, I was way too invested in their lives, in their decisions and outcomes. Control freak much? Hashtag let them step back. I would say out loud, come on, Linda, step the hell way back, like way over there, right out of the aim of fire. And my aim of fire was directly at myself, reacting and feeling bad about the circumstances of any one of my three daughters, or adults, incidentally. And in truth, there was nothing I could do except worry. Made no sense. I realised that I was right about what was going on and things did go wrong and sometimes things went great. But I realised it should never be about being right. Ooh, that's such a hard one, isn't it? I had to tell myself, put your ass away, child. Let your adult kids make their own decisions, because that is what they're going to do with you or without you. You can't put your 5 cents worth in. You may well be right, as I said, but just let them step back, let them make their own decisions, let them go. Let them do what they need to do. Just let them. I have understood for a few years now that I must step back. The peace of mind I get by keeping my mind and ideas about my life and not getting invested in their decisions. How many times have one of my kids decided that they're leaving the state or something substantial, and you go into turmoil of not being around them and not seeing your grandchildren? It feels distinctly like the early onset of grief. It colours then everything you do, plan, think and say. It could even change or delay decisions that you might otherwise make for your life by putting yourself on hold. And then their plans change. They're not moving anymore. And meanwhile, you've been in a tailspin for months. So after a dozen or more scenarios of pain I was feeding myself, I decided I had to change my outlook because it was not serving anyone, least of all myself. I can feel happy. My daughter, well, actually all three of them at varying times wanted to be in a relationship with someone who was very clear about not wanting to commit. They had got into let's have a wedding and started losing themselves to someone who didn't even know that they were really alive. How many of us have an adult daughter or son who is engaged, married, or in a relationship with a person who brings nothing but chaos? Yeah, it's not easy. It is a tough situation. And so you hang around thinking, yeah, you're making things better, and maybe you are in some degree, but have you had a look at your health lately? I see this too often, and is why I'm talking about it. Parents who have completely sold their souls to their adult kids' happiness, their health is suffering, their self-esteem is gone, and they're angry all the time. An interesting take on it is we are not helping them, but taking away their opportunity to rise to the occasion and work it out for themselves. And if you're being abused in the mix, then that is a crime. Of course, there are always exceptions, and I have much, much respect for that. I'm talking to those who have adult kids who are high functioning and are just lazy and rude. I'm talking about the parents who do not get on with their own lives because they may be afraid that they don't have one. They don't have a life. Sometimes parents have got stuck in being fearful of their kids. And if the first clue is you have no life and want one, that's a great sign. That's desire, and your life is worth questioning and wondering about. Okay, so it's much more and less in spots, but for this subject, it's relatable. So meanwhile, I'm listening to my daughter's hopes, their dreams, which were around one person. They were young, and can I say, in your 30s is still young. It takes time to really come to yourself in, some kind of good regard. And then they would have brutal breakups, and then they'd get back together, and they would find out that he'd been unfaithful, and then they'd still get back together. This story has cobwebs on it. Most of us have gone through all of this in some shape or form. If not yourself, with your children or with friends, kids. And when you're still developing and working out who you are and want to be, you might not have a good sense of your own value. It can be a shitty rite of passage. Nonetheless, an important one. I went through the roller coaster all the way, and over time, I started resenting him, the person, and holding in how I felt because my daughter was vulnerable at the time, and it meant a lot to her that I liked him. I think I'd like to strangle him. Oh, you and me both, Bob. At the time, we cooperate, don't we? We don't want to add to the situation, and we've got to sort of have conversations with people that we just think, oh my God. Anyway, so many valuable lessons learnt for all of us, and if you're lucky enough to get away, which they were, ultimately they got sick of it and they moved on. But now, and for the longest time, it is completely up to them what decisions they make. I purposely do not ask certain questions because I do not want to know the answers. It is as useless as a G in lasagna trying to advise the marble dwellers. Be willing to be a beginner every single morning. Step right back and then another step again. One daughter is going to live overseas for a while, and I missed her immediately on hearing the news. I got myself in a tailspin with how empty my life would be, making her all at once responsible for my happiness without intending that. But yes, it is fair to feel sad and all of that, but it's not cool to be a burden, to her adventures and to her life. It is such a great theory to not force our expectations on others, no matter what. Whatever consequences come are theirs. It frees you to move on to your life. Get that burden off your shoulders. I have for years, and on occasion it creeps in and I have to remind myself, down girl, let them and step back. But no longer force my opinion. A lesson in life well learnt. An adult child can actually make a career out of earning income from their parents by working the emotional system. As I looked into the whole debacle of where so many parents find themselves today, over the last few generations, our culture has increasingly encouraged parents to do things for their children that their kids should be doing for themselves. In other words, society has moved from caring for our children to caretaking. As a result, many parents find themselves solving problems for their children long into their adulthood. And how did this happen? As parents, we want our kids to be happy, and so many of us want to give more than what we had, overlooking that kids want your time and love, and that giving money and assets to help them can be a fatal mistake. I remember seeing it happening where kids started wearing Nike shoes, brand clothing back in the 90s, and the prices were astronomical. You heard kids being assaulted for their shoes. In entered a new world, one that seemed so unappealing. Our kids know how to push our emotional buttons. When pressed, these buttons tend to move us into caretaking mode. These vulnerabilities aren't right or wrong. They're just emotions that we tend to feel strongly regarding our child. And our child, I'm talking about adults. To allay fears, we tend to take too much on. and we care too much for our children, and then beyond into their childhood, we somehow can fall into a permanent caretaker. Of course, it can be for many reasons. Of course, we don't want them to suffer. We want them to have more than us. The common emotional buttons kids tend to push are related to hope, as in hoping our child will handle things better next time. Exhaustion, as in becoming so exhausted that you just give up. Guilt, as in blaming yourself for your child's problems. Sympathy, as in feeling sorry for your child. And intimidation, as in feeling physically threatened by your child. Emotional buttons are the pins to the parent ATM. This one is a huge one for so many, isn't it? The nightmarish stories that so many in my age group and beyond experience, what they go through all to maintain some kind of connection to their 40-year-old plus child, has in the end cost thousands and thousands of dollars and their self-respect. And they push the hope button and literally destroy their parents. They become unreachable by their friends, and that is a sad thing to see die. Boundaries that are deserved, self-care needs to be prioritised, having other commitments that should be honoured so as to not be available for every request. By being able to say, I am overextended and I cannot do this for you. We can always be happy to help, but when it's every day of every week and every month and every year, then you're the problem. Sorry, not sorry, marble dwellers. And some things have to be said and certain truths have to be faced, and then freedom to live your life how you want to, because if not now, when?
Often think that I've just got the rest of my life, just think that I've got forever.
Well, Bob, some people actually live their life as though they have got forever.
Does that mean I don't?
I don't know how to break it to you, Bob, but no. Hashtag let them and step back. When we were young parents, our world revolved around our children. Their every move, their schedules, their friends, their homework, their health, their jokes, their thoughts, their dreams were at the forefront of our minds. We wanted to know everything about them, to be involved in every aspect of their lives. And when they were much younger kids, that was how we kept them safe. And many of us were genuinely interested and fascinated by our kids. Our role as parents was all-encompassing, and it brought us joy and fulfillment. However, as time passed, our children grew up and eventually left home to pursue their own paths. Suddenly, we found ourselves facing a new reality. The role we once played as all-knowing, ever-present parents had to evolve. We had to learn to let go and unlearn the need to know every detail of our children's lives. And can I just say, really, really difficult, because I always felt that, yes, definitely I was mum, I was a parent, but when we were having our one-on-ones, it was just a lovely way to develop our relationships, and they were wonderful to me too, listening to me, giving me advice, whether I asked for it or not. But sometimes I would say, hey, this is happening, what do you think? Because I really appreciated and valued their opinions, because they had their shizzles together. So, that transition can also be very liberating and challenging. Oh my goodness, isn't that the truth? So it's not just us as parents that have to evolve and change and grow. They do too. And we've just got to watch from afar. And sometimes we just don't have any choices, especially if they're not in the same town, or if you're in a large city and they're far away and your schedules can't, align easily. And it requires a shift in mindset, and that is the basis, I guess, of this week's podcast. And it also requires a redefinition of our identity as parents. And here are some of the strategies that I found help to navigate this unlearning process. Oh yes, another unlearning. It just never ends. So first off the rank is acceptance. We've got to acknowledge that your children are now adults with their own lives, and understanding that it's natural for them to have their own experiences and make their own decisions and keep certain aspects of their lives private. So it's learning to embrace this new phase of independence and allow them the freedom to explore and grow. Now, when I'm saying these things, it took me quite some time to really develop these sets of skills because it was 3 daughters, 3 very different people at different stages, and every time I sort of got one sorted, then it was time to go through the second daughter leaving home and going off into her world, and then the third daughter doing the same, and then the renegotiation, if you like, of our relationships outside of what had been. The other is trust, building trust. I always had a lot of trust with my children growing up, and so you would think that would make that transition easier, but I mean, it was probably easier for them. And and on the face of it, I looked like I was coping quite nicely and all the rest of it. But inside, oh gosh, it wasn't easy at all. So it was, recognise that they have acquired valuable life skills, and you may have been a part of that, and acknowledge from their upbringing, that if they're out there being successful, then you've done a really good job as a parent, and trust that they'll make responsible choices and handle challenges as they arise. And if it's really something they feel that they need to talk about, then they'll come to you. They'll come and talk to you about it. Communication. While it's important to give your kids space, maintaining open lines of communication is key. See, I always kept my lines very open, got very disappointed when no one took advantage of, the open line. So it's like, or the old one that's such a common one is, well, I'm waiting for my child to respond to my text, only I sent her a message, 5 days ago, and I'm still waiting. But anyway, over time, all these things improve. They do get better, and we have to get better at not, hey, you're not responding. That really hurt my feelings, or, that's just rude, or whatever it is. This is why everything, the mothership points to getting your own life. So ultimately that relationship will, and it must be built on mutual respect and understanding in order for it to grow. And number 4, one which I think is really important, is you've got to focus on your own growth. As your children become more independent, it's an opportunity for you to rediscover your own passions, your interests and goals, and shifting your focus from being solely dedicated to your kids' lives to nurturing your own personal growth. Now, some people find this easier than others. Other people are cheering. They're just absolutely over the moon that the kids are left home and they get on with things. Other people are still really working jobs or careers that are really intensive and take all their energy and time. They don't have the time to lament on when they're going to see the kids or why the kids haven't responded to them. We all have different backgrounds, of course. So it's shifting your focus from being solely dedicated to your kids' lives to being a bit more interested, a whole lot more really, in nurturing your own personal growth, pursue hobbies, engage in social activities, and invest time in self-care. Yes, self-care. I know I always go on about it. I always like to slip in the old self-care thing. Your kids, seeing you do this pays off. As the feedback I have received from my daughters is that they are still inspired by what I do. And it's mutual because I'm so inspired by them. Another would be embrace new roles. As your kids move on, you have the chance to explore different roles in your life, whether it's pursuing a new career path, becoming a mentor. Embrace the freedom to reinvent yourself and find fulfillment outside of the parent-child dynamic. That is the biggie right there. Fulfillment outside of the parent-child dynamic. And again, I feel it is worth saying, I often think about that they will be my age one day, and I hope it is worthy for them to recall what I did when they are my age and go, okay, I don't need to stop living or move less because I'm now in my 60s. So for us, it's really important that we cultivate a support network. Now, that can just be one person. Surrounding yourself with someone or friends, family, and other parents who are going through similar experiences to be able to share your thoughts, concerns, and successes with them. And having, I think always, no matter what, having a support network can provide a sense of belonging and just to help you navigate this unlearning process together. Remember, transitioning from being intimately involved in every aspect of your children's lives to embracing their independence is a journey. It may take time and adjustment. And oh boy, don't I know that one.
Yeah, it's been a bit rough in spots.
Yes, it has, Bob. But by letting go, trusting and focusing on my own growth, I've created a fulfilling and meaningful life beyond the role of being a parent. Cherish the memories you've shared. Celebrate their accomplishments because they're still going to be accomplishing more things and having their own children, which, two of them have. And it's just such a special time and something that's opens up another world that we couldn't have possibly imagined unless, like all things, until we go through it. Look, I just want to thank you for joining me on this journey of redefining parenthood and discovering new paths for ourselves. I had to work it out by myself. I bounce off ideas, of friends and if we're at different places, it's hard to, to feel like you're moving in the right direction. And I hope that you found a little bit of inspiration and encouragement in the discussion today. It's quite the exploration, isn't it? I'm going to try and say transformative power of letting our children become adults and embracing our own personal growth. As parents, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that our role is solely to guide and protect our children. But in reality, they need the space to navigate their own lives and make their own decisions. It turns out it is essential to acknowledge that our children are unique individuals with their own dreams, aspirations and journeys. As they step into adulthood, it's important for us to let go of the reins and trust in the foundation we've provided them. We must celebrate their autonomy and support their endeavours, even if it takes them down paths we didn't anticipate.
That can be so tricky.
Well, it's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure, Bob.
And while it can be bittersweet to see our children explore new horizons and connect with them on a different platform,
it's also time for us to rediscover ourselves. That's right. I think that's what you were going to say.
Well, yes, if you'd let me.
It's a chance for personal growth beyond the traditional roles we once held. And there lies the rub. The traditional roles we once held. We can stay connected with our children through these different platforms, whether it's texting, social media, actual dates. We call them romance, which is code for brunch. We can maintain strong relationships, offering guidance and support when needed, while still allowing them the freedom to forge their own paths. It is about finding a balance, isn't it? Balancing our desire to stay involved and connected with the understanding that our children need the space to make their own choices. This journey isn't just about our children. While they are transitioning into adulthood, it's about us embarking on a new chapter of our own lives. It is a whole lot. So if you've felt lost in it, that has to be truly gently dealt with for your own sake. For this new chapter holds endless possibilities. Who knew?
Knew what?
The possibilities, Bob. We can pursue long-delayed dreams, dive into new hobbies, old hobbies, explore passions we've neglected, or even embark, as I've said, on a new career path. It's never too late to redefine ourselves and discover the fulfillment that comes from personal growth. All that encouragement we gave our kids, we can now apply ourselves with it. Design it for you. Design your life for you. Wow, what a concept. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. No, good. So let's raise a glass to all the parents out there who are navigating this uncharted territory. Here's to letting go, celebrating our children's independence and embarrassing them. Absolutely. Embracing, that's what I meant, embracing the exciting path that lies ahead for us as individuals, as marble dwellers, as queen ages. Oh, cheers to that. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, our amazing listeners, Marble Dwellers, for joining us on this podcast. #LetThem and Step Back. We hope you found inspiration and comfort in this conversation, remember it's never too late to embrace change, let go and embark on your own journey of self-discovery. And as we sign off, always remember that the love and bond between you and your children will remain strong, no matter the platforms or paths you take. The rest, the in-betweens, the other stuff is what it is. And so regardless, it is still important to go forth, dear marble dwellers, and celebrate the new and wonderful chapters that await you. I love the idea of new chapters. So I just want to thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Say good day to the family for me and give the canary a tickle, and I'll see you next time, okay? Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye.